Um, there was a last minute intern situation, uh, but here I am. That last film was part of the Cornet film collection that we've been scanning, and some of them are original elements, so they don't. This one didn't have a soundtrack, so I'm desperately looking for the soundtrack for because anything that has the word troublemaker in it is thumbs up. Anyways, let's learn about weather satellites, courtesy of our good friends at NASA.
We've come a long way in weather forecasting since the early balloon launching days, thanks mainly to weather satellites. Just 15 years ago this month, NASA launched the first Tyros weather satellite from Cape Canaveral. The views of Earth were pretty rudimentary compared to today's high-quality pictures, but they proved that routine global weather observation by satellite was possible. With each succeeding one, these weather sentinels have become more and more sophisticated. Here, the synchronous meteorological satellite. Two are already in orbit, with a third scheduled for launch this fall. Besides transmitting cloud cover pictures every 30 minutes, day and night, SMS can receive and send environmental information from thousands of manned and unmanned data collection platforms, located at sea, in rivers, lakes, and on land. The synchronous meteorological satellite pictures are made into film loops daily at the World Weather Center near Washington, D.C., to show cloud movement over oceans and land masses. Meteorologists are hopeful that this kind of information will give them clues to the weather conditions that, for instance, cause tornadoes and other fast-moving weather systems. Weather satellites. Over the past 15 years, they have returned more than 2 million pictures, provided advance warnings, and allowed no major storm anywhere on the globe to go undetected. These model airplanes have something in common with these Rio planes. They are all part of a NASA research program to learn more about vortices, tornado-like patterns of air that trail behind the wings of airplanes, causing varying degrees of turbulence. Dave Scott, Acting Director of NASA's Flight Research Center in California, explains.
The vortices are dangerous because these bundles of energy, as they follow behind the aircraft, leaving a wake, have the capability of turning over smaller aircraft as they approach a landing. And because of this, we have a great deal of concern that many accidents can be caused by the vortices or these bundles of energies as they attempt to turn over an aircraft.
While all aircraft cause vortices, large heavy jets such as the 747 and DC-10 create the more serious problems. Air traffic density around major airports adds to the severity of the problem. Because of the many aircraft coming in for a landing and the need to sequence one plane behind the other, aircraft are routinely separated at safe distances to avoid the trailing vortex problem. However, this often results in increased fuel use and traffic delays. Smoke generators mounted on the wings of these planes by NASA researchers make it possible to see and investigate the whirling air patterns. The research has shown that by adjusting wing flaps at different angles and by making various design changes, the intensity of the vortices can be substantially reduced. This kind of aeronautical research today may very well result in even safer, more convenient flights in the future. presented by NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
I like the logo with the little animated stars flashing, twinkling. That's something I hadn't noticed before. But yeah, that had a super exciting intro, and then it was kind of like, kind of mediocre narration. All right, this next film is, I've shown films from this series. This is raw material, raw footage, which will be obvious when you first watch it, featuring that older lady interviewing people in Western North Carolina about folk life and culture in the counties of Western North Carolina. Here's Apple Trees.
I'm running.
Well, here we are in Haywood County, Henderson County. Start it over.
Oh, Lord, Ruth.
On.
Go.
Here we are in Henderson County, #1 Apple County in the state of North Carolina, sitting out here in a beautiful apple orchard in full bloom. And we are visiting with Mr. and Mrs. Rome Lyda, Rome and Mildred.
That's right.
That's right.
And this is their apple orchard. Rome, how many acres of apples do you have?
I have 17 acres of apples.
And what kind?
I have the Red Delicious, the Golden, the Stamen Wine Sap, and
Rome Beauty.
Rome Beauties.
That's about all. Isn't
That's
anything
it.
left, is
There's
it?
nothing left in my book.
Well, what's this tree closest to us here?
This is Stamen Wine Sap we're looking at now.
And it's a beauty.
It's,
Has the cold hurt you?
cold hadn't hurt any apples at all in Henderson County so far.
Oh boy. Well, here's hoping that everyone turn into a nice fine apple. Now you do a lot of other things besides tending to apples.
Yes, we do. We produce farm. We grow tomatoes and beans, cucumbers, pumpkins, and we grow grapes. We got a nice grape vineyard here.
That's interesting. Now, Mildred, tell us, how do you market this produce, the vegetables and all?
Most of it's sold right here on the farm. The people come here and been coming here for years and pick it up fresh right here at the farm, right under the little shed that we have here under the shade tree right off of 64.
And so you just fix up under your little shed there and put everything out?
Yes, we have people come from all over the United States here,
Do
and they
you really?
order stuff from us. And
You mean by mail?
no, they come by and order it on vacation and come back maybe in 2 weeks when they go on further up in the mountains and come back
Oh.
by here and take their tomatoes and their apples and beans on home with them wherever it might be.
Oh, I see. Well, that's a good idea. Then they know when they come by they're going to be sure and get it.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, how do you have a cold storage place or anything you can keep these vegetables in, or you pick them so that
we just sell them fresh daily while they're in season, and we plant early and late, so we'll kind of have them during the tourist season. It usually ends here in about the end of October.
Well, that's a smart way of planning, so you have something going on all during the months that the tourists come through.
Then our grapes are ripe in September, and we market those mostly to amateur winemakers here in the county.
You don't sell to any real big wine companies?
No, they go fresh grapes, and most of them are used for winemaking, though.
Rome, are you an amateur winemaker?
I make wine. I make me about 5 or 6 gallons every year.
What kind of grapes do you use for that?
Concord grapes. They're the best.
He tells me he uses the wine for medicinal purposes only, but I don't believe wine will cure a runny nose just like that.
Well, if it does for Rome, that's all right.
Good, isn't it?
What's your most valuable thing that you raise here?
Well, I like the grapes. about as good as anything as for a money crop as we have. I like the
Better
food
than
with
apples?
I like the food with grapes. Yes, yes.
Well, what is it about grapes that intrigues you so?
It's different. We don't have very many vineyards or
Well,
whatever
the
you
women
call
can
them here.
do a lot of the work. They know ladder work. You see, I can get plenty of help to cut those grapes, and I don't have to do so much.
Oh,
They're
I
so
see.
pretty and different. We have the blue grapes and the white ones, and we fix them in a pretty package, and they're so pretty. And
You
we
have
see
more-
apples all the time, and the grapes are different.
Oh, yeah,
You
well.
have more people come and look at grapes than you will apples. Much more.
You mean people from away from here
Yes.
would rather look at the grapes?
That's right. That's right.
I'm surprised.
They'd rather see the vineyard just to see
More
the apple
interested in the grapes than they are apples usually, or the vegetables.
Have you lived around here all your life?
orchard. All my life, yes.
Is this the family farm or?
No, the family farm is about 2 miles from here.
That's
over in
where we grow the
Fruitland section.
produce.
I grow my produce about 2 miles from here.
And that's the old home
Old
place.
home place, yes, where I was raised.
And so over here is chiefly apples and grapes.
And some produce. I grow some produce here. Yes.
This is kind of a family project here. We have 3 children that we've grown up here on this farm, and they've worked as hard as we have. And 2 of them are college graduates, and Jeffrey's finishing high school this year, and we'd like for him to go into this business, but he thinks it's too much work, you know, and I don't know if he will or not, but we're going to give him a chance to wait and see if he wouldn't like to come back to this.
And where did those that have finished the college go to school?
They went to Western Carolina.
And
Sonna did.
are they going to be farmers?
No, one of them teaches school and one's with a telephone company right now.
Uh-oh, well, you better get this other one to be a farmer.
But they love farming. They come in from their jobs every afternoon and start helping, waiting on the customers, and the men enjoy those young girls, you know, and they'll buy stuff when they didn't have any idea of buying anything when they see those pretty girls, you know.
I hadn't thought about that. Well, maybe you like to see the young pretty girls too.
Oh,
Ron. How about
yeah,
that?
I do. Uh-huh.
Well, it's
Sure
been fun visiting with you and sitting down a few minutes out here in this beautiful apple orchard. And I hope that, as I said, that no cold comes.
I can feel it like right here. The Western North Carolina school. Pretty great. It captures, I would say, late 70s, mid to late 70s, Western North Carolina. Yeah. So let's watch about Rome, the Eternal City. Enjoy.
The eagle, symbol of Jupiter, patron and protector of ancient Rome, spreads its wings in proud flight, high above the eternal city. To those who would seek reminders of the glory of the Rome of the Empire, the Colosseum provides an eloquent story in stone. Of all Roman amphitheaters, this was the largest and the finest, with seats for 50,000 within its vast enclosure. In this arena were staged elaborate battles of men, of animals, and even of ships. Built by Vespasian and Titus, the amphitheater was dedicated in 80 AD, the opening performances lasting 100 days. The Colosseum is regarded as one of the finest pieces of architecture produced by Imperial Rome. The stonework of the exterior was set in place without mortar, iron dowels providing the only fastenings used. Some 18 years before the Colosseum was opened, Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, came to Rome. Once a bitter enemy of Christianity, Paul became one of its greatest missionaries and theologians. Here stands his statue within the colonnaded square that spreads before the most famous temple of Christian faith in the world. Here on ground that is hallowed as the place where the great Christian saint was entombed, stands the Basilica of St. Peter, shrine of religion and art. On the 18th of April in 1506, Pope Julius II wrote to Henry VII of England. The news he wished to tell him was that on that very day the foundation stone of the present St. Peter's had been laid. Before the basilica was consecrated 120 years later, in 1626, the foremost artists of the Renaissance were to be linked with its design and construction. Bramante, Raphael, Michelangelo, Bernini. To enter St. Peter's Cathedral is to cross the threshold of a temple not only of religion and art, but of the history of the world. Here, woven into it, artists. Bernini's canopy for the high altar that stands above a vault revered as St. Peter's tomb. St. Peter's statue in bronze, Michelangelo's Pietà, the monument of Pope Alexander VII by Bernini, of Gregory XIII by Rusconi, of Clement XIII by Canova, and from the hand of the same sculptor, the tomb of the last of the Stuarts of England. A holy water basin by Leroni and Moderati. A mosaic of the Transfiguration by Raphael. St. Longinus by Bernini. St. Andrew by Duquesnoy. The towering dome designed by Michelangelo, the crowning glory of St. Peter's. And here, in contrast to vaulting architecture and imposing statuary, light and delicate figures of angels. The Italian Renaissance expressed itself in the religious art of St. Peter's, but it expressed its many-sided genius too in the design of magnificent fountains. This world-famed work is in the grounds of the Villa d'Este in Tivoli, near Rome. Fountains and springs have been a feature of Rome since ancient times, serving as water supply for the people and enhancing public places with their decorative effect. The water of Rome has always been excellent and abundant, and while the design and structure of a fountain may date from the Renaissance or later, the water used may flow from the distant Sabine Hills through an aqueduct built 20 centuries ago. It is said that Bernini made Rome a city of fountains, as well as churches. And in the Piazza Navona stands his fountain of the four rivers. Tritons and river gods ornament this work, representing the Nile, Ganges, Danube, and Rio de la Plata. Bernini was a master of the Baroque style in art, and above all, in the sculpture of this fountain, he sought dramatic effect. "16 centuries before Bernini fashioned his fountains, Rome was experiencing the rich urban life of an age of imperial glory. Where now there are only silent ruins, in that day there were bustling streets, busy shops and marketplaces, temples, and public buildings. This was the center of empire for Julius Caesar, Augustus, and the emperors that followed. But the pomp and power of empire vanished centuries ago. Pools that reflected imperial splendor now mirror scattered ruins. So too with the grounds of Hadrian's palace in Tivoli. Here birds find silent sanctuary in gardens once reserved for one of the greatest of the emperors of Rome. The ruins of archways, these are fitting reminders that Hadrian was a builder. Throughout a reign of 20 years, he built the outward citadels of empire as well as an inner structure of law, sound finance, and humane public policy. To the gardens of his villa, Hadrian would return when resting from his travels throughout the length and breadth of the empire. Travels that took him to Britain, Africa, Greece, and Palestine. Yet, even here, were reminders of the affairs of a mighty empire. For within the 8-mile length of his estate, Hadrian built replicas of the places in the provinces that enjoyed the greatest renown. His empire in miniature was about him. This wall, within the grounds, calls to mind a vaster wall of Hadrian, erected to defend the northern frontier of the Roman province of Britain. Perhaps in this very setting, the emperor formed his building plans for Jerusalem, Athens, and small provincial towns. Here, perhaps, beneath rows of cypress trees, Hadrian walked and talked with the learned men of his time. For he liked to have about him philosophers, scholars, and poets. Such are the memories that crowd forward as we stand amid the splendors of the imperial palace of Hadrian, a man who gave to the Roman Empire an age of resplendent glory and strength. Later came the twilight and the long night after. Empires pass away, imperial glories vanish, but tradition lives on. Even today, on special occasions, fireworks light up the historic structures of Rome, as they did in the 17th century when Italy was renowned throughout all Europe for the artistic elaboration of its fireworks displays. So are the splendors of the past recalled, and so is their passing honored. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, he it was who said, "All things are formed by nature to change, and to be transformed and perish, so that other things in continuous succession may exist."
Hi, everybody. Anyways, that was great. It made me feel very small. So behind me is a film scanner, and we have it set up with a film, I think by the Navy. We'll see. But it is called It's Our Job. Enjoy.
I get an awful kick out of looking at those jobs. Kind of makes you feel like you want to stick out your chest and be proud you're a foreman. After all, we're the ones that have to take the plans and the ideas. Yes, and the prayers of the guys up in front, and turn them into engines. Dependable engines, and deliver enough of them to make good our promises. Tain't easy. Sometimes I think it's the toughest job in the plant. But I wouldn't trade it for any other job in the world. Does a fella good to take a long look plant once in a while and think of himself in terms of the whole operation. I guess there's nothing in the world to equal this industrial setup. I always like to watch the faces of visitors. The more they know about production, the more their eyes pop. Yeah, it's beautiful machinery, all right, but machines alone can't give you production. It's people that count most. It takes men to run machines, and women, too. Lots of women today doing what we used to call a man's job. It takes men to set up the machines and keep them running. It takes men and women to check the work, protect our good name. All down the line, it's people, people, people. Human hands and brains that do the guiding and thinking for the machines. All kinds of people, all kinds of jobs. Thousands of people all working together as one big team. And we've got a whale of a job running that team. Shucks. It's easy to handle machines and material. It's handling people that makes a foreman's job a success or a headache. There's some sort of $2 word for it. Yeah, human relations. But what the hell? It's just getting along with people, treating them like you'd want to be treated, get them to work with you instead of against you. Of course, that's nothing we don't already know. Trouble is, sometimes we're so busy with our own problems we can't, at least we don't, get the other fellow's point of view. And that's where we start making our own jobs tough.
Now, wait a minute, Joe. Just what do you mean by that?
Well, let's think of an example. Take a simple thing like breaking in a new operator. It's his first day on the job. He's green. He's confused and strange. He's had a million questions fired at him, signed a lot of papers. He's anxious to make good and scared he won't. Finally, maybe after wandering all over the plant, he finds the right department, and you. But you're busy, so you take the easiest way, at least what seems the easiest way. You push him over on the group leader. But he's busy too, so he takes his cue from you. He takes the easy way and shoves him on to watch some operator on a similar job. And there they stand, a couple of strangers, both embarrassed. Does the new man learn anything? Nothing except to hate his job, even before he starts. Let's stop this and start all over again. Here comes your new man. You're busy. You're up to your ears in things to do. You're on your way someplace. But hold it right there. That's right. Now think. Can you spare 1 minute to get this man started right? Haven't you a minute to treat him the way you'd like to be treated? All right then. Don't give him the brush off. Let him know his boss is also his friend. Talk to him about his past experience. Not like a third degree, but because you're interested. Let him know how he fits into your production plan. And let him know he's welcome. Call over the group leaders. Introduce the new man by name and be sure you pronounce it right. Explain to both of them that you're sorry you won't be able to start the new man yourself, but that you know the group leader will carry on for you. Right there, you've given the leader his cue to do the job right. And if he's been properly instructed, he'll come through. One of the first steps in getting acquainted should be to meet the timekeeper, who will show him how to handle his time card. Oh, I know that may sound like nursemaiding, but you know how much time he'd have to bird dog his card during the change of shift stampede. So it's well worth the few minutes it takes now for the timekeeper to familiarize him with his time clock procedure, how to locate his card quickly, and how to check in and out. Generally, the getting acquainted process can be combined with visual instruction. The group leader introduces a new man to an experienced operator on the same job and suggests they get together at lunchtime so the newcomer can learn the cafeteria procedure. Then watch the old-timer run a job. There are a lot of details and techniques which the new man can learn from watching the experienced operator. And in this friendly atmosphere, he won't hesitate to ask questions. In passing, I might add that if the new operator happens to be a woman, it's all the more important to make her acquainted with other women in the department. There are always a lot of personal questions and problems which women can best settle among themselves. If you're smart, you'll give them that opportunity, or you may be wearing an awfully red face sometime. But man or woman, before the new operator starts on production, the group leader should familiarize him with all the tricks and habits of his particular machine. Finally, he starts running the job himself. He knows he's being watched and judged. Sure, he's hesitant and self-conscious, and he needs encouragement. So the group leader sees him through until he gets the hang of things. His should be an attitude of patience. Let him stress the fact that he expects the newcomer to swing in gradually, that making honest mistakes is no crime, but trying to hide them is. And of course, he should be instructed in proper safety precautions and the fundamentals of good housekeeping applied to his machine and the immediate surrounding area. And of course, that includes making sure that various kinds of chips, rags, and rubbish are put into their proper containers. That's a war order nowadays. Impress upon him right from the start the importance of putting finished parts in the proper containers so they won't be nicked, scratched, or marred. Once he's started right, he'll be apt to stay in the right channel. Gradually, your new man begins to hit his stride. After he's got into the swing of things, call the timekeeper and get him acquainted with his paperwork. Too often we're inclined to overlook the importance of these job tickets. But after all, this is the only analysis you and I have of the spending of many thousands of dollars a week in our departments. It's vitally important that we have a breakdown of how that money is being distributed. So while your new man is in the most impressionable stage, teach him the importance of his own individual job breakdown. And let him know that the timekeeper is there to help him keep his record straight. Finally, as you leave the new man, let him know that he's not cast adrift. Impress upon him that the group leader and you are there to help him in any way you can. He's one of the family. So in practically no time, your new man is a producer, and he's your man for good. They say a good top sergeant shares all the joys and troubles of his men. Well, of course you and I can't be too nosy, but it sure keeps up spirits if your men know you got a friendly interest in them. Pays off in production, too. A little while ago, one of my grinders stopped me and said she had to take some time off, 3 or 4 days or a week. She didn't feel good. In fact, she was too sick to work. Well, of course, I knew that was a stall. But I also happened to know her husband's in the Army. Their 2 kids are living with a sister up in New Hampshire. I knew there's no use to send her to medical, so I said, maybe you're a little homesick to see those kids, eh? Can't say as I blame you. Well, she almost busted out crying. Well, I arranged to get her a Wednesday following our regular day off, so she'd have 2 days to get back and forth to see the youngsters. Knowing her, I knew I'd get the time back, and I did. As it turned out, that day was a mighty good investment, because a little later she admitted that if I'd have turned her down, she'd have gone AWOL, or quit her job. When you're dealing with people, you gotta know people. He's got 5 daughters, but he's hoping for better luck in a couple of months. That guy raises the best cantaloupe in Connecticut, and I know. There's a woman whose son was on Wake Island. Ever hear of it? There's a guy who's building his first house. All finished, but he can't get any plumbing. Sure, it's funny, but not to him. Yeah, you gotta know people. And you also gotta know how well they're physically qualified for their jobs. For instance, that young fellow. To look at him, you might think he could pick up that machine and walk away with it. He isn't going to come around and tell you he's got a trick back. But his put-on slip will. You see that medical symbol? You know what it means? Well, you better. Because if you put him on a job that requires any heavy lifting, you're going to have an injury case on your hands. Maybe a permanent one. And that fellow. Never know to look at him that he has occupational restrictions. But his medical symbol tells you at a glance that he's allergic to oil. I know that lots of times when I've had some muscle job I want it done in a hurry, my first reaction is to grab the first half-dozen men I see and get the job done. But nowadays, that's dynamite. Now, we really can't afford to pass out any new jobs without first taking a good look at the medical history of the men who'll do them. But how many times do we take that trouble? And yet, look here. In that one group, there are a couple of bad hernias, a weak back, and 2 heart cases, as you'd find if you traced down those medical symbols. Just suppose I had followed the first impulse and had called those men in for an odd job of lifting. Sure, they'd have come. And they'd have tackled the job, too. No man wants to admit he's physically unfit, even to himself, and especially to his boss. So the chances are they'd have done just as I'd asked them. And then maybe... No, thanks. Not for mine. Looking at it from just a cold-blooded standpoint, you've lost two producers you can't afford to lose. So believe me, it's just common sense to leave that kind of jobs to guys who are supposed to handle them. Even if it's a matter of just switching jobs in the department, let's be sure that the man is physically okay for the new job. If you can't tell just by the symbol on the card, call medical and check with them. You know, I've often heard it said that the men put their foreman in the middle. But I wonder if it isn't the foreman who puts himself in the middle. I had one experience along that line that sure taught me a lesson. A fella came to me for a raise.
So I says to myself, if other guys on the same job are getting raises, why ain't I? And I thought I'd put it right up to you. Now, how about it?
Okay, Charlie, you're a pretty good fella. Maybe you were just overlooked. To show you how I feel about it, I'll put a raise through for you right here in front of you. Shirley? Grimes.
Well, okay. Thanks. I'll be looking for it next payday.
A lot of fellas I'd rather see get a pay increase before him.
Oh, well, maybe a raise will help pep him up a little. Give him something to live up to.
Yeah, maybe.
Here, put this through. But don't let it get around the shop. You know.
Okay, I know.
Well, I guess you know what happened. Job evaluation checked up and found that my own rating of the man didn't entitle him to a raise. I didn't have a leg to stand on. I was just sitting right in the middle of it. So, next payday...
Yeah, but you said next payday I'd get my increase.
Oh, no, I didn't. Now get it straight. I said I'd put through a request. And I did. You saw me. The management turned you down, that's all.
Yeah, but you said
I did everything I could for you, Charlie. I'm sorry.
Nuts.
Management turned him down. Who is management? Why, out in the plants, it's me, damn it. Right that minute, I could see what I should have done. When he first came to me...
If other fellas on the same job are getting raises, why ain't I?
Well, I don't believe you're entitled to a raise on the basis of the job you've been doing. But let me recheck, and I'll let you know what to find out.
Okay. I'd sure be much obliged.
Take care of that, will you, Pete, and check up for me?
I think I know what the answer will be.
Well, anyway, let's get our last rating on this fellow. And also check to see if there have been any recent changes.
Right.
In a couple of days, we had the full story. On my last rating, I had marked this man way down in dependability. His production was only fair. And according to my more recent records, he hadn't improved any since the last rating. So next day, I called the fellow in.
Say, I was wondering what's new on my chances for a raise.
Well, I'll tell you, Charlie. I'll put it up to you on the basis of your record. Look here. Here's your previous record on production. Nothing to brag about, is it, Charlie?
Well, not exactly. Not then.
And it doesn't seem to have picked up much since, would you say?
No. Not an awful lot.
And your dependability? Frankly, Charlie, that was pretty bad at your last rating.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I had a lot on my mind then.
And since then, you've been AWOL 3 times. That doesn't help much.
3 times?
Why, sure, don't you remember?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's right.
So, Charlie, put yourself in my place. On the basis of your last record, would you say that you were worth a raise?
Well, looking at it that way, I suppose not. But I could be.
You're darn right you could be. Your quality rating is good. Your adaptability rating is right up there. And Pete Martin tells me you've got the makings of a top-notch producer. So it's up to you. I'll tell you what. Pete, keep an eye on Charlie for a while, will you? And see if you can't help him iron out this production lag.
Sure, glad to. I think maybe I know the answers. Some of them, anyway.
And this AWOL thing, that's strictly up to you, Charlie. And in these times, well, you know what that means.
Yeah, I know. And it won't happen again.
Turn out the kind of job that'll let me give you the rating you ought to have.
All right. And if I do?
You do, and you won't have to ask for a rate change. It'll come through automatically.
Okay.
Attaboy. What a difference. Instead of a sore head nursing a grouch, I've got his respect. And I've got another man on the upgrade. You know, it's that keeping men on the upgrade that marks a real foreman these days. The more production every individual turns out, the sooner we're through with Mr. Schickelgruber and those slant-eyed sons of Jap Heaven. Speaking along the lines of individual production brings to mind one of the fellows in the shop. Maybe you know somebody like him. He's good only for the simplest kind of bench or machine job. And then somebody has to set up his job and gauge his work for him. Anytime you put him on some new job, the group leader practically has to lead him through it by the hand. He takes up the group leader's time. He turns out scrap that's charged against your department. You'd think he was a dope, but look at his face. Hell's fire, he's intelligent enough. He could be a darn good man for you, but he just doesn't know shop practice. So what are you going to do about him? You haven't the time or the facilities to train him. The answer is send him to the training school, of course. But wait a minute. Let me give you a swell example of how not to start him off. Now, Al, never mind what you and I think of this going to school business. It doesn't take long, and even though you may feel a little silly, it can't hurt you. You might even pick up something that'd do you a little good. Anyway, all you'd lose is your bonus, and when you come out, I can get you a raise.
How long does it take?
Oh, I don't know, a little while, a couple of weeks more or less.
Well, I don't know.
It's the only way I can get you a raise, Al. You better think it over. It won't take long. Now, that's a hell of a way to start him out, isn't it? Why not tell him what a course in shop training really means, and what it means to him? Let's try that again. Of course he isn't interested in just going to school, but he does want to better himself. Al, the only limit on your value in this shop is your own ability as a producer. You're smart, you're willing, you've got all the makings, but you're just not trained. Until you are, you'll always be handicapped. But lucky for you, we have a training school. Here, in a few weeks, you can learn the fundamentals that most of us had to spend years sweating out the good groundwork in shop mathematics. Also the design and purpose of all basic machine tools, setup and operation. Here you'll get both a general and a specific understanding of the various types of tool design and handling which have made aircraft the top machine shop of this country, in fact of the world. Just to show you what Pratt & Whitney thinks of the importance of this training, your base pay is continued all the time you're in the school. And as soon as you've completed the course, well, it's only reasonable to assume that you could step into a better job with better pay immediately. And from then on, well, as I said, the only limit on your value in this shop is your ability as a producer. Will he go for that course? I'll say. And just wait till he comes back. Incidentally, hasn't it ever occurred to you that maybe we would be a lot smarter if instead of taking some man off the street to handle a job, we first found out whether the training school could furnish the men we need? Of course, there's more than one way of fitting a man to a new job. One way, well, let me give you an imitation of Foreman Mortimer Thud. It's really pretty funny. One bright day, a new machine suddenly appears in the department of Foreman Mortimer Thud. It comes as a great surprise to Mr. Thud. He asked for it only 3 months ago. But everything surprises Mr. Thud. Now what to do about it? Probably ought to have someone to run it. Yes, sir, and quick. And so, at long last, Mr. Thud lets the employment office in on his little secret. This job requires a pretty good man. You don't find them on bushes these days, especially on a day's notice. But that means nothing to Mr. Thud. When the machine is set up and ready to go, he expects a man ready to go to work. And if the man isn't quite as experienced as Mr. Thud would like, well, that's the fault of employment, of course. Yeah, it's good comedy. But if you're interested in efficient production, there's a better way. Actually, the time to start picking the new man is when the job comes up, as soon as you know the machine is coming. You know the job, you know the machine. So it's principally a problem of finding the man for the job. If you need any help in setting up the qualifications of the job, as in the case of a new or unfamiliar machine, call Job Evaluation and get a job analyst to help you. You establish the requirements of the job. He translates your requirements into a job rating specification. In any event, set up your manpower specifications fully and early, and give employment a chance to get the man you want with the training and experience necessary to handle the job. Maybe he's already in the file of availables. Maybe he'll be coming out of training school in a couple of weeks, just when you're ready for him. Maybe employment will have to send out a dragnet. But in any case, if you give ample advance warning, let employment know what you need as soon as you know, there's a far better chance that by the time the machine is set up and ready for production, the new man will be on the job. And he'll be an experienced hand, ready to start producing. The operation, the man, and the machine, all fitted to the job by experts. Gosh, what a lot of headaches we'd save ourselves if only we didn't shy away from calling for help when we needed it. I used to think that a foreman was supposed to know everything. What? Shucks, nobody knows all the answers. The really smart guy is the one who knows where to get them. And just bear this in mind. When you're dealing with staff departments, you're dealing with people. After all, departments are made up of people. People trying to do a job the same as we are. Even time study. Well, I've known the day when I'd almost cheer if some operator'd complain he couldn't make his time. I'd get time study on the line and yap like a fox terrier. Then once as we were all standing around watching the job running, it suddenly came to me that we were all watching through different eyes. What I saw was a workman, willing, loyal, conscientious, turning out a quality job. And I'm thinking that with finished stores on my tail for more production, maybe I better get another machine and another operator. My group leader is looking at production, man and machine. He sees the tools are properly set. Everything's up to speed and running just as the book says. So if the card says the man is behind schedule, in the group leader's eyes, the operator must be to blame. But the time analyst gets an entirely different picture. He sees that the operator has to walk over and reach down to pick up stock. He sees the operator standing idle as the machine runs through its cycle, then gauging the pieces while the machine stands idle, and finally wasting more time and energy stepping over and leaning down to pack the finished pieces. Well, after watching a while, this time analyst made some changes, like shifting the material boxes so as they'd be easier to reach, and little time savers like gauging and packing the finished part while the machine was running its operating cycle. A lot of little things like that. None of them very important, but altogether, well, the upshot of it was the operator made his time, and with a lot less personal exertion, too. Of course, I'd always thought these time analysts were guys with thick glasses and a fraternity pin. But shucks, this fellow had been an operator himself. He wasn't going on any highfalutin amateur theories. He had the advantage of experience all over the plant, even in experimental. Naturally, if the job had really needed a new time rate, I'd have got it, don't worry about that. But the funny part of it was, after watching this guy, my group leader got to thinking, and he came up with a new setup that really made the job a lead pipe cinch. Now, I like to see a group leader or anybody use his head to cut production time. But it better be a real improvement, not the kind of shortcut I once took. We were honing knuckle pin holes on the master rods, and I was having trouble getting the bottom diameter to size. So I got a bright idea. The sheet said, hone all holes from one end. But I thought, why not just flop it over and hone it from both ends? So simple. Nothing to bother telling production engineering about. And boy, did it solve my problems. Cleaned up the other ends in no time. Well, those rods went on through subassembly, out onto the floor where they were built into engines, and on through test. Not until the first engine through test was torn down for inspection did they discover just how much my bright idea was really helping production. The holes I had honed were not in perfect alignment, so my master rods were not only scrap, but were making scrap out of sets of knuckle pins and link rods by scoring them. It was slowing down production right along the line. Of course, they traced it right back to me. And mister, you better believe my face was plenty red. Sure, I should have called production engineering. They would have told me my idea was okay, but be sure to change my setup to ensure proper alignment. All I needed was a universal honing head. Now look, here's my point. It's the responsibility of production engineering to design and develop all the tools, the methods, and the operations of production. That's their job, and I say let them do it. Oh, I don't mean I won't disagree with them from time to time. And I don't say I won't get new ideas. But from now on, I'm tossing all my ideas in their laps first, believe me. Yeah, we sure have a lot of people to deal with in a job like ours. But every one of them can help make our job a little easier if you'll just give them a chance. Take a guy like the stock chaser. Maybe sometimes you think he's just a jerk. But oh boy, if you don't check with him on shortage items and schedule accordingly, you can sure find yourself paddling the wrong way. Like when you get an order to run some spare parts and you think you've got a fat production inventory piled up. So instead of piecing out on light machines, you decide to tear down a production setup. And instead of letting the stock chaser in on the secret, you go right ahead. And just about the time the spare parts job is set up and running, you'll learn that because of unusual demand or spoilage or something, your fat inventory has melted away. And now with the assembly line about ready to start screaming, you're set up for last year's spare parts. And the stock chaser begins to wonder who's doing what to who. Just people. Everyone with a job to do and everyone trying to do his job. And some of those jobs aren't any too pleasant either, unless you're willing to help. Take the guards on the gate, for instance. They're not just nosy. It's their job to see that nobody but authorized employees get through those gates. In these times, you know how important that is, and you and I can make it a lot easier for them. When you come through the gate, let them see your badge. Set an example for your men. Let them see how you feel. And of course, they'll follow your lead. And in the plant, if you run across something that looks like theft, don't try to play detective yourself. We have trained men for that job. Leave the evidence intact. Keep others from meddling. And call plant protection immediately. The same applies if you discover something that looks as if it might be sabotage. Maybe it's an accident, but maybe it isn't. Let the experts decide. And in the meantime, don't let the evidence get all cluttered up with fingerprints. Put on a hands-off sign and call plant protection. We Americans are notorious pranksters. We love our little jokes. But this is wartime. No time for monkey shines. And besides, those practical jokes have a way of building up. Each gag becomes just a little worse. Finally, somebody really gets offended or hurt. Then, the first thing you know, production is stopped on half a dozen machines and you've got a couple of people who have to be fired. So step on those monkey shines early. They only make your job tougher in the long run. And that brings up another thing. I wonder, has it ever occurred to you that maybe you and I make each other's jobs tougher without even knowing it? Some little thing like, not giving the foreman of the following shift the whole picture of work in progress? I don't mean deliberately holding out, of course. Just not giving him the cooperation, the consideration we'd like to be given. 9 times out of 10, it's unintentional, just plain carelessness. Let me give you an example. One day, a marked blueprint and flag came down from requirements. Some changes on a hot part. You know how it is. Good God, do we have to change over the whole line?
No, only after Operation 27. But finish up all parts and process that have been through 27 by the old print. We can use that.
Well, okay, then everything I've got in here has been through 27.
Oh, well, it's a cinch. Just keep going on the old sheets till some new stuff comes through.
We'll worry about that tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Oh, change coming too?
Yeah, but it doesn't affect us today. We'll carry on with the old sheets. I guess I better leave instructions.
That all you're going to say?
That's enough. Any more, just be confusing.
Okay.
At the shift change, when I was cleaning up with Jerry Moore, who follows me, the question came up again. We didn't say much about it, but I guess what he thought was plenty.
Any squawks from the floor, or are we out to hit 'em?
No, Jerry, we're doing all right. But nobody better turn around to sneeze.
Oh, well, it's always like that. Hey, what's this, a change?
Yeah, there's a memo covering it. You just go on as you are, though. It doesn't affect you yet.
That's the story, huh?
A hell of a memo that is.
Yeah, just carry on with the old sheets.
That's what it says, doesn't it?
Okay, Joe.
Sure I will, big shot. Don't let me bother you.
Well, take it easy, Jerry. Anything you want, just call me.
Sure, Joe. So long.
Sure, I'll call you. A pig's eye.
Uh-oh, change, huh? We got the new sheets?
Oh, we follow the old sheets.
Follow the old sheets? Why, how we...
See what it says? Follow the old sheet. Maybe we're not supposed to know why.
And so that shift went along following the old sheets. Of course, that was as it should be, luckily. But when the shift changed again...
Hey, Jerry, there's something wrong here. The old sheets don't match this marked print.
Read the memo, that's all I know.
I'm not sticking my neck out.
Okay. Sure is funny, though.
Yeah, lots of things are. So long.
So long, Jerry. Hey, Ed.
Yeah?
And maybe I'm screwy, but here's a marked print and a memo that says to use the old operation sheet.
Well, that's nuts. You can't do that.
Well, Jerry Moore just turned in the whole shift that way.
Why, he couldn't. Look here. And here and here. Not with the old sheets, you don't.
Shut down the job, Ed.
You mean stop the job?
I mean, I'm not going to work a whole shift producing scrap. Shut it down.
Okay, so she's down.
Well, of course, when I turned to on my shift, all hell was popping. And I was doing my share. You mean to say you shut down the job as hot as that is? Why, man, why?
Hey, look, Joe, I'm used to riding wild horses around here, but not when they're running different directions. Nobody can make a part like this print with the old sheets.
Why, of course not. You're not supposed to. Good God, can't a man pass on intelligent instructions from one shift to another?
I sure wish we could. All I get's a damn fool note that doesn't mean a thing.
Let me see that. Oh, a damn fool note that doesn't mean anything. Well, I'd stuck my neck out, so I just left it out, expecting to catch plenty. And it's a funny thing. Right then, I got to know the foreman of the preceding and following shifts better than I ever had before. And believe me, they're okay by me. And I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, a little more understanding between people sure can make a whale of a lot of difference. A mighty big place, a lot of departments, working 3 shifts a day. Yet in another way, it's just one department, and one shift, 24 hours a day. Come right down to it, we all got just one job. We know what it is. It's your fight and my fight. All of us working together all the time. The only trouble is, sometimes we can't see the whole pattern. How would you like to talk to somebody who keeps his eyes focused on the whole operation all the time? Somebody like our general manager, Bill Gwynn.
The major responsibilities of management, and that is you and me, is to get over to the workers what we want and how we want it done. For although money, machines, and materials are all essential, it is the men who do the job, and in doing the job, make an accomplished fact of the management plan. It is always difficult to visualize how the activities of the men in the various departments fit into the perfect pattern of production until you have seen the assembly line. Here is the result of the brains, the hearts, and the hands of every man in Pratt & Whitney aircraft. For this is a cooperative effort sparked by loyalty and driven on by determination to do the job in the best way possible, always recognizing that it is teamwork that wins. In the final analysis, our success or failure depends upon men, on the quality of our personnel. Dependable engines can only be built by dependable men.
This war is pretty close to us. We know we're going to win or lose according to our ability to dominate the skies. We're turning out dependable power. Now it's just a matter of turning out enough power to do the job. And, mister, we aim to win this war.
That was something else. All right, so I'm going to look this up. Let's see, in my book. Yeah, it ran long, obviously, but it's like you took all those Alcoa management films and you smushed them together, and you made the plant a plant that's making parts for the war effort. I think this is the title of it, because the title was clipped, is It's Our Job. So I'm looking it up in this book, which is the 1940s. No, this is wrong. This is not the 40s. This is the 40s. These are the 30s and earlier. All right. It's your job. Yeah, a couple of things while I'm looking up. One is the main character who's smoking a pipe is supposed to be, I guess, the manager. You know, the friendly manager who's trying to tell you what works for him and the mistakes he's made, because you know he's a average guy, so sometimes things happen. It's our job. Let's see. It's up to you. It's nifty. You know, maybe it's your job. It's your... No. It's up to us? Nope. I'm not finding it. Huh. Alright. And I couldn't find it on WorldCat. So, yeah. The other thing is, like, that last shot. It's in so many films that we have of the guy behind the desk who is, like, about on the verge of freak out. And he's like, obviously reading lines because his eyes are moving across like this. And regardless of how stirring what he's reading is, he drains the energy out of it. And I have yet to see one of those that are just like, yeah! They're always like, blah, 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 and together we blah, blah, blah. It's so bad. Anyways, thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate the indulgence. As always, please rewind and love each other. If you like what you saw, you can hit the like button, the subscribe button, thumbs up. You can go to avgeeks.com and see other things we have online, including our 24/7 channel. Go to patreon.com/avgeeks to donate. And thank you, Nathan, for buying us some coffee. He went to ko-fi.com/avgeeks. Coffee is a great way to get us sitting behind a desk more animated, instead of talking like this. Welcome to AV Geeks, lunchtime streaming show. Blah, 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 blah. Anyways, thanks for tuning in today. We will see you again tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Take care.